Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Hey South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world.
We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fm.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We are with the fabulous Norbert Putnam as he played on so many hit records, you can't count them, and produced for some of the biggest acts ever. We got to talk Jimmy Buffett.
One day at breakfast, he says, I started a new song. He says, about a night and a day in Key West, I played a bar and I got drunk, and coming home, I stepped out of my flip-flop, and I just kept going. I stepped on a beer can. And the next morning, I'm up, and I'm hungover, and I'm trying to make a margarita. I got some shrimp boiling. I can't find the salt. I said, Jimmy, I kind of like this. And he said, yeah, I think I'll call it Margaritaville.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on your local SuperTalk Mississippi station and now on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that every single day celebrates the amazing people who make coastal Mississippi, and Mississippi for that matter, such a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, today we're going to celebrate one of the people in Mississippi who's doing some amazing work for our state. We'll come back to that in just a second, but I want to connect the dots on some things that I did in my career to the work that he's doing today. So bear with me for just a second. You know, there's a lot of debate these days about the role of media in society. And man, there's a lot of good reasons for that. You know, the rise of digital media, that certainly has played its role. Things like Facebook and using artificial intelligence to determine our news feeds, which is not a good thing, actually, because what it does is it looks at your likes and dislikes and it gives you more stuff like they think you want to see. And instead of the objective things you really need to see, which is not always the things you're interested in, but it helps you understand better about what's going on in society. There's a lot of debate about credibility of cable news programs. And the reality is that most surveys these days say that most people think of cable news as low credibility. And I can understand why. I could go on and on about this, but there's a big discussion about media and the world today. And it's all brought on, I think, a lot by the pressures of digital media and this need to be first and the use of artificial intelligence, like I mentioned just a few minutes ago. But the First Amendment plays an incredibly important role in our democracy. I think there are very few people who will debate that, whether it's protecting our freedom of speech or whether it's protecting the freedom of the press. As it relates to the freedom of the press, journalists have an incredibly important role in our democracy. They have a right to access public places so they can gather information and disseminate news. You know, one of the things that I often said when I was publisher is that it's important for us to get the basic facts out there, and people need to have a source that they can trust. And oftentimes that's difficult. It's difficult to find a source you can trust. Once they have the basic facts, then they can make a decision about where they stand on the issues. But that's really the role. At the end of the day, journalists are out there to hold power accountable. And I think there could not be a more important role than that, to speak truth to power. As a former paper publisher, I have an incredibly deep role about the role that journalism plays in helping to keep our democracy viable. I saw that so clearly in focus after Hurricane Katrina and was really honored when my team at the Sun Herald was awarded a Pulitzer Prize gold medal for public service. So it's in my bones to understand the importance of keeping and creating accountability, particularly with elected officials and those who serve the public. Later in my career, I was really involved in some very significant digital efforts that were designed to kind of save journalism as we know it, because the advertising model that supported newspapers had literally been obliterated. We were really working hard to search for a new business model in the digital age that could give us the ability to keep as many reporters focused on that watchdog role as we possibly could. And frankly, at most newspapers across America before the digital age, that's where most of the investigative journalists were. And so as a result of that model being sort of obliterated, we don't see as many investigative journalists out there. Certainly don't have as many as we should have or need to have. I can't underestimate the role of local watchdog journalism. And if you think about what has happened at the Sun Herald, certainly this has played out across the state. We don't have as many reporters focused on this as we used to have. By the way, one of the reasons why I talk about the Knight Foundation a lot, and my friend Alberto Ibarguen, the CEO of the Knight Foundation, is because they've been committed. He's committed his life, literally committed his life to finding an approach to journalism that works in a digital age so that we can have as many of the watchdog journalists as we possibly can. And I'm really inspired by their work. I'm inspired by Alberto's leadership. I'm inspired by the Knight Foundation's work. But there's been a serious decline, and we've really got to stay focused on that. I think because of this decline, it creates in places like Mississippi, but this is true across the country. It creates a focus on, among other things, the need to have a strong state auditor, a state auditor that's committed to rooting out fraud, and someone who is beyond reproach. We must have a state auditor who's willing to speak truth to power, no matter what political party is involved. In my assessment of the current state auditor of the state of Mississippi, Shad White, I see just that kind of leader. It's pretty impressive. Let me share with you a couple things real quick. If you look back at some of the headlines of just the last, say, month and a half, what you'll see is this. Auditor's Office arrests former bookkeeper, college dean in a multi-million-dollar workforce development fraud that involved over $2.3 million. Auditor's Office arrests former volunteer fire chief for embezzlement involving an alleged $30,000. Auditor demands repayment of misspent welfare money. This story's been well covered, but we're talking about money in excess of $77 million. Auditor's Office makes arrests for COVID stimulus fraud involving over $50,000. Auditor's Office makes 2 arrests in separate Yalabusha, I have a hard time saying that for some reason, county cases involving over $100,000. And listen, this goes on and on and on. There's one story that talks about the auditor's office has been given high marks by its peer review, and really I could go on and on about that. But it's again, that's just through sort of the end of September. This office is burning the midnight oil and working their fingers to the bone to make sure we have, they're thinking about our grandkids and the future that we're going to leave our grandkids. And it's important to root out corruption, root out fraud. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Shad White, the state auditor of Mississippi, and say, it's a great day here on the coast, and welcome to Coast Vue, Shad.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate those kind words, and I appreciate you having me too.
It's great to see you. Look, when Jeff Pender, who, by the way, is a former colleague at the Sun Herald, when he wrote about you in 2018, July 2018, when you were appointed by Governor Bryant, he said this. Shad is a Harvard Law School grad and former Truman Scholar at the University of Mississippi, where he received a bachelor's degree in economics. He studied as a Rhodes Scholar at the University of Oxford in England and has a forensic accounting certification from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. You were uniquely positioned for this work. You were only 32 years old. That's amazing to me, actually. But you really wanted this job, didn't you?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the same thing that I told the governor when the state auditor's position became available. We had a quick conversation the day that news went public, and I told him, I said, frankly, if this were really any other job in state government, I would not be calling you. So no disrespect to the state treasurer's job or the secretary of state's job, but I simply did not feel led to do those jobs because I felt like my skill set fit with this particular thing. And I also felt like this job is unique compared to a lot of others in state government because this gives you the ability to tackle a lot of different problems that are important to me all at once. So there's obviously what you were talking about earlier, which is embezzlement, fraud, white-collar crime involving taxpayer funds. It bothers me to my bones to see that. I always think about my dad, who's an oil field pumper in Jones County. the guy works incredibly hard 6 days a week. My grandfather was the same exact way. He was an oil field pumper. They pay their taxes. They do what they're supposed to do. They follow the law. And then when you see someone out there who breaks their trust and steals money from them by stealing taxpayer funds, it's always bothered me a lot. And that's why I was interested from early kind of on in my professional and academic career in white collar fraud and corruption. And so that's why I wanted this job in particular. And the other piece is that we get to do a lot to drive the policy conversation forward about how Mississippi can operate better. So to just piggyback off that, you mentioned the workforce training funds case. We investigated some embezzlement and misspending of workforce training funds up in North Mississippi. And yes, we will hold the individuals accountable who did that specific scheme, but also it gives me the opportunity to say, okay, well, now that we've seen those specific instances, what policy changes can we institute as a state to make sure that that money is being well spent everywhere? So that's the thing I love about the state auditor's office, is that every single day when I go home, I feel like we have accomplished something important for taxpayers.
Well, you're a human sponge. You're a young guy who's wanting to learn as much as they can about how this state operates. And I can't think of a better position to be in than state auditor, to understand the inner workings of it, but the local level, regional, state level. What's interesting, I actually ended up reading, just in preparation for this, I came across a story that was in governing.com, and it talked about, you would think that the state auditor's role would be something that that you see a lot of current leaders who, state auditors move on to do other positions, and that's certainly true. You've seen U.S. senators, you've seen governors. In the case of Mississippi, you've seen, two governors, Governor Bryant and Governor
Mavis.
Yep, Ray Mavis. My mind is blank. But they've done really well. You see, but you don't see it as often as you see it. It's really quite interesting to me. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Shad White, who is the state auditor for the state of Mississippi, and I want to share with you some words that Governor Bryant shared when he appointed Shad the auditor, and we'll continue the conversation. We'll see you after this break.
Coast Vue on SuperTalk 103.1 is brought to you by J. Allen Toyota on I-10 exit 38 Gulfport. See all the incredible inventory at allentoyota.com. And remember, when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
It's 2021 and J. Allen Toyota still has a lifetime warranty on all new Toyotas. They all come with Toyota Care. We've got a great rental department. We've got great used cars. We've got a parts and service department ready to help you. So when you think Toyota, think J. Allen Toyota.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Of outer space, visitors from another world.
We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. When Shad White was appointed by Governor Bryant to be the state auditor, he literally stood in the same spot that Governor Fordyce stood in when he appointed Governor Bryant to that position. And one of the things that he said is that he picked you because he really wanted someone who was going to be independent. He wanted someone who wasn't going to use that job as a stepping stone to other positions. But as I was saying just before we went to break, there are some great leaders across the United States, both in governorships and U.S. senator roles and others. You know, a couple of cases here in Mississippi with two governors that were state auditors and became governor of the state. It really is a great place to learn. Now, I know you didn't come into that position to aspire to do something else, but at the end of the day, man, what you're learning about how the state operates is really empowering you to not only be a better state auditor, but it probably has opened your mind to other opportunities for the future, hasn't it?
You know, I think that fundamental point that you made, Ricky, is exactly right. So I don't know that there is a better office in state government from which to learn about state government and really local government as well, because we do a ton of work with local governments, making sure that they spend money correctly. And then if somebody steals money from a local government, we hold those folks accountable. Yes, you know, back when I was being appointed, Governor Bryant had some very blunt conversations with me about why he was picking me for this job. The first was that he had done this job for 11 years himself. And when you do a job for over a decade, you tend to walk away thinking that that job is important. And he was not going to give the state auditor's position to somebody who he had not seen work personally and who he had not observed and could not vouch for their work ethic personally. And I'd worked with with Governor Bryant when he was lieutenant governor, and so he'd seen that in me. He knew that I'd burn the midnight oil, and I was ready to go to work on a Saturday, and all the things that he expected. He was blunt about a second thing, which was he wanted me to stay in this job for a bit. And he did not want me to jump into this job and then turn around 2 years later and run for Congress or something like that. And I told him I have no intention of doing that because I think this job is important and I want to sink my teeth in here. Now, in the long run, this is sort of the downside of the state auditor's office. From the perch of the state auditor's office, you end up seeing a lot of problems in government, just to be honest. You see a lot of misspending. You see money that could be spent a good bit better. My power as state auditor stops at showing the public how that money is spent and then stops at holding individuals accountable if they happen to break some sort of law when they're spending. But you can imagine there are a lot of situations, a lot of programs that we look at and you think, man, that program, now that I've gotten into the weeds on it, that program could do so much more. That program could be better run. So that's the kind of downside of being state auditor, is that you see solutions, but you're not in a position to get to fix those solutions. So I carry that in the back of my mind too, and for the time being, really want to focus on this job and do it the right way.
When I was early in my career, I was working for the Sun Herald, and we were owned by Nate Ritter, and I had the opportunity to work on what is called a re-engineering team. 26,000 employees. There were 12 people that were engaged in this re-engineering effort. And we helped to do a lot of important things. We designed centralized Oracle databases for the financial systems of our company, and we did a lot of work in the circulation and advertising side of the company. But it created efficiencies for our company. It made us a much more efficient company. But it helped us kind of, be more responsible too as stewards of the company, because we were bringing in new technology and all of that. But I was like you in my early 30s during those times, and it changed my life. I mean, it changed, once you see the things that you see, you don't know exactly where that's going to take you, but, you've had sort of a mind for public service. Someone pointed out in something I read that you could have been a long time ago working up in New York, where my son is, incidentally, as a lawyer making a bunch of money, but you choose to be back here in Mississippi making your mark. It will be interesting to watch you, Shad, as you continue to sort of understand things, because with your education, your thirst for knowledge, your willingness to make a difference, even when it makes people upset. And I know that as a former publisher. I mean, after Katrina, I took a few people on after Katrina, and, and I didn't lose a bit of sleep at night, I might add. I mean, I felt once I understood that I believe this was the right direction to go in, and I saw public officials not wanting to go in that direction, I didn't mind taking them on publicly, because I felt like it was the right thing to do. But see, it's interesting, I ultimately became a publisher, and the rest of my career could be defined as a change agent. I was involved in really significant, very significant strategic efforts, not only for Knight Ridder, but also when I left the company and went to work for Advanced Condé Nast. I see the same kind of thing in you. It's going to be interesting to watch you. I mean, people may say it'd be interesting to see if Shad becomes governor one day, and certainly people talk about that. But, what are the steps between here and there? Where are you going to choose to make your mark? And one of the things that's very interesting to me, and I'd like to know the answer to this one, is when you say you see where things can be more efficient, and sometimes politics and efficiency don't go together. We know that very well. It can be very frustrating, and you want to go in there and fix it, but fixing it means new legislation where you got to get people aligned around legislation. It may mean some new policy that would take things in a different direction, not allow political influence to be such a big part of it. How often do you find yourself just super frustrated with not being able to fix the system, so to speak?
Every day. I'd back up one step to hit on a theme that I think your career speaks to, and I hope my career as state auditor will speak to, is this idea that change and sticking to principles is hard, but it is very important. So when you see a government program that's broken or could be spending money a bit better, the state auditor can audit it, show the world how the money could be spent a bit better, but going through the process of changing that program is something that often requires people to stop doing what they're doing. Some folks may lose their jobs. Some folks may replace them. Folks may come in and shake up the culture of an entity. Those are all things that are hard, right? It's easy to keep doing the same thing every day, day in, day out. We see that in our personal lives. Change is difficult. So for me, my thought whenever we see a program that is not functioning well, or an office that's had money stolen from it, my first thought is, I don't know if I can fix this all today. I don't know if I can generate the kind of change that I want to today, and I could get frustrated over that. Or I could realize that my role is to provide sunshine onto this issue, show the public what the story is, and then make that be the first step and do that right, and not get frustrated that we're not at step 8 or 10. The other piece of that is sticking to principle is sometimes difficult for people in politics. For me, I think about it this way. I'm the state auditor. I signed up for this job, and you hired me to do this job to follow the law. The law is the law, period, regardless of who we're talking about. So it doesn't change for somebody who's famous. It doesn't change for somebody who's broke. It doesn't change for somebody who doesn't change for somebody based on the color of their skin. The law is the law, period. I'm not in this job to go home at the end of every week and say, man, I did what I needed to do to survive the week politically, and that's great, and I'll do the same thing next week. Because if you do that, week after week, you'll look up after a few years and you will have wasted your time in a position of importance, and you will have wasted a part of your life. Part of the purpose for me in being in this job is to do the hard things when I know that sometimes other people in politics are not willing to do the hard things. That way, at the end of my time as state auditor, I can look back and I can look my two daughters in the eye and say, I did this the right way. I did this in a way that you would be proud of, and I did this in a way that I thought would make Mississippi better so that I could hand you this state in a better position than it was when I got it. That's the goal of every generation, is to do that.
Yeah.
Not to look back and say, you know what, I did what was necessary to get by politically, and I got elected to the next thing. I want to do this job regardless of whether it advances, my career, or whether I have to stop at the end of being state auditor and go back to private practice and make money. Either way is fine with me. I just want to do this the right way right now.
Shad, I often, when I would give speech, I had a great mentor in Roland Weeks, the former publisher of the Sun Herald, and he said that a publisher wears three hats. He has the fiduciary responsibilities of a business, you're a community leader, and to the extent that you're a community leader, a really intense community leader, you can understand the connection between the journalism and the community, and you can make sure that, particularly editorially, that you're reflecting the needs of the community. And then third, you're a publisher. And those hats can often be in conflict with one another. And, I've gotten these calls. I'm sure you have gotten these calls that you're going down a particular path journalistically, and it was making a lot of people very, very uncomfortable. And, whether it might be an advertiser, some politico, whatever the situation might be, I'd get the call, and the purpose of the call is to try to either intimidate me to stop or to really beg me to stop whatever that exploration was. And my job, the way I saw my job as publisher, was to take those hits so that my team could go forward unencumbered, follow that, and do what was best, and that is to continue to shed the light. That's why I believe that the role of the auditor's office is not unlike a journalist in that respect. These ideals, these principles that you talk about. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Shad White and get his reaction to what I just said. We'll see you after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast Vue on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
Get the scoop on what happened in college football and what to expect in the NFL. Each Sunday on Sports Sunday with Michael Borky. Get the story behind the stats, 8 to 10 a.m. on SuperTalk Mississippi, supertalk.fm, and watch the show on supertalk.tv. SuperTalk Mississippi. We're more than just words. This is where the story of your state is told. Proud to cover the Magnolia State like nobody else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard to find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi. From outer space, visitors from another world.
We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer-songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back, now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out, the new Bob 106.3.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Shad White, who's the state auditor for Mississippi. Shad, when you took office, this is what you said. You said, I'm supposed to safeguard your money. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that none of it is stolen and none of it gets embezzled and none of it gets wasted. I promise you that. When you go back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, when you're the state auditor or the publisher of a newspaper or CEO of a company or whatever, you name it, if you go into that job wanting to maintain your integrity. In other words, just about everything in life is negotiable, but your integrity. Your integrity is not negotiable. When you go in and you say, this is what we're going to do, we're going to safeguard people's money, and we're not, those who steal or embezzle or waste, we're going to make sure that we hold them accountable, we shine the sun on it. But that means you're going to get a call or two along the way. And as a young guy, what prepared you for that? Because those calls can be tough, man. I know what they look like. As a publisher for nearly 16 years, I know what that looks like. Talk to me about where that comes from, your ability to sort of stomach that.
It's funny that you framed it in this way, because I actually was asked by a college student a couple of days ago, what makes a good leader? And I told that person, look, for a lot of these positions, whether it's a newspaper publisher or state auditor, a lot of smart people could learn the technical skills that you need to do those jobs. A lot of smart people could step into my role and after about a year understand what they need to about the law and about forensic accounting and whatever else to understand the technical aspects of this job well. Probably the same for a newspaper publisher, but the thing that you can't teach that really good leaders have are traits like courage and a willingness to stick to principle despite the fact that somebody who's important is giving you a phone call telling you to back down. Those kinds of moments are important because that's what separates somebody who is going to do the right thing and do a good job in their role from the people who are just there to get along. So you can imagine in plenty of cases that I've had, folks will call and say, why are you doing this way? Why couldn't we have handled this quietly? All that sort of stuff. And my answer to them repeatedly is, you aren't my boss. My boss are the hundreds of thousands of Mississippians who elected me to do this job. It's the people who pay taxes in this state every day. And so if I ever stop thinking about them and start thinking about that person who picked up the phone and called me, I've already begun on the road to making mistakes. I've got to think about the people who are not ever going to get the chance to give me a ring on the phone, but who are expecting me every single day to come into the office and to work to protect their money. It's the people who worked with my mom. She's a 35-year public school teacher. It's the folks like my dad who go to work and haul hoses and wear blue collar every single day. Those are the folks that you have to think about, not the person who calls you and says, hey, you need to back off on this thing because that person's important. You're going to do yourself a lot of harm when you go after somebody like that. That's not the person you listen to.
It's tough. I had had people tell me before, if you don't stop, I'm going to pull $1 million worth of advertising. Okay. Now for you, it might be campaign contributions. It might be a lot of things. It might be things you don't even know about. One of the things somebody asked me one day said, okay, so when you take those strong positions and someone reacts the way they do, what's the thing you notice the most? I said, gosh, that's a great question. I think the thing I noticed the most is how quiet it got. Do you know what I mean by that? Yeah. You wouldn't be involved in certain conversations because people are starting to get a little leery about you. They're not sure if they can trust you or not. And I've seen that just because you didn't do what they wanted you to do, it got kind of quiet. It really does affect your political relationships. That is for sure. And you have to be willing to stomach that. And you don't know what the ramifications of that are going to be. You don't know what they're saying about you. They don't. And, in politics is so unkind because, you say it to one person, then they say it to somebody else. But by the time it gets to the 100th person, it was never the original story. It wasn't the original story to begin with. Mm-hmm. But you have felt those things and you still stand tall. And there's more to it than just a profile and courage. There's something. It's bred into you. It's some enduring values that are core values that were passed to you by your parents. Talk a little bit more about what's driving you.
I feel like there's a story of something that happened to me in law school that really speaks to this. So I feel very lucky that for whatever reason, I went through a series of experiences that thickened my skin really early in life so that when I got into this job, lo and behold, I was prepared to tolerate those kinds of conversations, ignore the people who are yammering in the background, all the things that you need to do to be an effective state auditor. So when I was in law school, this is very early on, I went to law school at Harvard Law. A ton of people who disagree with me there politically, as you can imagine. So really early on in law school, there's a group of us, my friends and I, got invited to go over to this guy's house, his apartment, to watch the Yankees game. And so we go over, he's a big Yankees fan, we go over to his apartment, and we're all sitting there in the room. And for whatever reason, the host, the guy who is there, who is very, very left of center, way out on the left, just continuously talked the entire baseball game about how much he hated the United States of America. I mean, I just vividly remember everything he said, just constant, one thing after the other. And bear in mind, this guy is at Harvard Law School, arguably the premier institution for learning, higher learning in the entire world. He's gotten there, and this country gave it to him, but he's complaining about the country at the same time. So I kept my mouth shut for a lot of the party, and he just kept going and kept going and kept going. And ultimately, a lot of people in the room started agreeing with him. And finally, at some stage, I just said, look, man, I totally agree with you. I think we would all be better off in North Korea or Iran right now. I hear things are going really well over there. And as you can imagine, that wasn't the most popular thing to say in the room at the moment. I never got invited back for another baseball game. And I walked out of there thinking, you know what? I don't know if I said it the right way. I don't know if that was the right move. But here's one thing I do know. I do not care what those people say about me now that I've left the room, because they are not going to have a substantial impact on my life. And two, I stood up for an idea that I believed in a moment when it was very cool to say the opposite thing. And so that was one little kernel, one little moment in life. And now I look back at that, it seems kind of trivial now, but it's actually a part of a lesson that I had learned along the way. You're going to have to say things that are unpopular sometimes. You're going to have to do things that are unpopular sometimes. Those folks who are affected by what you're doing are going to be talking about you afterwards. They may say some things that are not nice. Somebody may even misconstrue the statement I made or mislead people about how harsh I was in tone, whatever it may be. And you have to not worry about it if you're state auditor. So I feel lucky that all these little things like that happened to me along the way before I got here so that I could do this job a bit better.
What I've learned, though, and I've certainly experienced all this because I've been involved in major change efforts, that it's hard to be a leader of a company or a political leader in this day of social media and the digital age. Opposition research looks different than it did a bunch of years ago. It's more cruel. It's more false. It's and people say, well, how do you stomach it? So much meanness directed at me. I was the messenger. I was the guy leading the efforts, and I understood that I had to be willing to have thick skin and take the hits. At the end of the day, I believed what I was doing was the right thing to do. I really did. And I know that people's lives were impacted, and I get that. But the long of it all was that we wouldn't even have a company to save if we continued down the current path. So you got to make tough decisions. But it is a cruel world we're living in today, Shad, as it relates to being in politics in the digital age, particularly in the social media age. How do you... I guess it's just that conviction that you have that enables you to say, I'm doing what I believe to be the right thing, and people are going to do whatever they're going to do, and I just can't let that detour me from doing what I believe is the right thing to do. Is that kind of where you are?
That's it, and I think you just have to ramp up that instinct in the era of social media. So I'll just tell you, you haven't lived until you've had literally 1 million people come after you with a pitchfork, which is what happened to me last week. And some of your listeners probably know what I'm talking about. But, until you've had 1 million people on Facebook come after you, you don't know what real pressure feels like. But also, in that moment, you have to understand that when you are being pressured by that many people who don't know what they're talking about for the most part, when you're being pressured, that is a signal sometimes that you are doing the right thing, because it's the hard thing. So what guardrails do I use to just kind of weather all that storm?
We'll come back to guardrail real quick. Is that around the Brett Favre issue?
Yep, correct.
Yeah. So the guardrails.
So very basic things that we decided to do pretty early in my public life after I got to be state auditor. We decided as a family that other family members, not me, other family members would do their best to avoid reading social media commentary about me. That was a very important thing. Two is I don't read a lot of it. I end up reading some of it because some direct messages come to me. And for those things that are just completely out of bounds, you just push it out of your brain and decide that you're going to blaze forward. Those are the kinds of very simple rules you set for yourself that allow you to survive in the social media environment.
It's hard. And it's hard. You want to, when you see people you respect reacting to something that's not positive, that's false, it's hard. It makes it, I mean, you're human. you got feelings like everybody else, and so do your family. I know that so well. But anyway, we're going to continue our conversation with Shad White when we come back from break.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
SuperTalk Mississippi. Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Del Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera slips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute.
Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play.
Hey, guess what? Bob is back. Now at 106.3, playing the 80s, 90s, and whatever.
I get knocked down, but I get up again.
Check us out. The new Bob 106.3.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Mathews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. Listen, I said at the beginning of the show that we were going to celebrate a state official who I believe is doing a good job. And, you know, I knew a little bit about Shad White. One of the great opportunities I get in doing Coast Vue is I get a chance to focus on one person for 24 hours. But in Shad's case, I've been watching him. I've been watching him carefully. And what's cool to have that conversation we just had that said that the way you get through these difficult times, I know this is true of Governor Bryant. I know this is true of Governor Mavis, that you got to believe what you're doing. You have to have this. You have to have the strength of conviction. You got to have a basis and foundation for integrity. As you pointed out a few minutes ago, you got to have some courage. All those things come together to make you a good state auditor. And you got to really want to care about our grandkids, for God's sake. You got to want to leave something that's better than what you took the reins to when you did this a little over 3 years ago. Hey, listen, let's shift gears. Along the way, you decided to become a National Guardsman. So talk to me about that decision and what you do these days.
Sure. Yeah, it's a family tradition in my family. Military service is. So both of my grandfathers served. My maternal grandfather served in World War II, fought in North Africa, and was injured when a German explosion shot shrapnel into his neck. I can still remember as a little boy rubbing the scar on the back of his neck where that shrapnel went in. That ended his war, so he got a Purple Heart and came home after that. My paternal grandfather was a little bit too young to be in World War II, so he served in Europe during the very early days of the Cold War. So point being, it was a family tradition for us. I was really in part raised by my paternal grandfather because my dad worked with him, so I was in their hair all the time. I spent every weekend over at his house, and my cousin and I were both that way. My cousin went on to become a Marine pilot, and I always wanted to serve in the military as well. So life sort of worked out in a way for me where the National Guard made the most sense, and I'm now a JAG officer in the National Guard. I get to take off my auditor hat and put on my lawyer hat again and go serve my country in that way. It's a really fulfilling way to give back. It connects to my work as state auditor because to me, both of these jobs are about service. They're both about giving of yourself to a broader community. In this case, in the case of the National Guard, giving back to your country. It's not always easy. So there are plenty of men and women who have dedicated far more time than I have. They've gone on dozens of deployments and all this sort of stuff. But every single person who serves in the military, whether it's National Guard, reserves, or active duty, your listeners out there either know or they need to understand that every single person gives up a lot of time with their family to do something that they care about. And for me, that's what it's about. It's looking back and saying, okay, yes, I'm going to give up some time with my two daughters to make this country safer and better for them. And that's why I like putting on the uniform and going to drill and going to trainings and doing the things that we have to do, because I know that I'm a very small cog in the machine of the American military, but I'm doing something that matters a lot to me.
Well, God bless you and your military service for sure. Okay, so is my math right? You're 35 now?
36. Had to think about that.
36 now. Okay. So you're 36 now. You were 32 when you were appointed. You ran unopposed, and you've got your another 4 years. Ray Mavis was 35 when he was elected state auditor. Mike Moore was 35 when he was elected attorney general. Dick Malpass was 34 when he was elected Secretary of State in 1983. I wanted to remind myself about these young guys that came into these state offices. All those that I just mentioned were all terrific leaders in their own right. Do you feel it's an added burden being a young guy in that role? Talk to me about that.
I think I did the first 2 years I was in this role for a couple of different reasons. One, I'm young, but I look young. So that's an added challenge when you're going out and trying to explain to people what you're doing in your job and why you're doing it well. So I knew that I wanted to do this job really well, and I knew that I needed to do it better than anybody else could do it in order to compensate for the fact that there'd be a lot of people who would just look at me and say, I don't know if that young man knows what's going on. So I needed to prove to everybody that I knew what was going on, that I could do this job well. The other reason that I felt some of that pressure is I walked in this office, the state auditor's office, and the deputy state auditor, who's the number 2 person under me, he's been in the state auditor's office almost as long as I've been alive. And so I wanted to prove to him that, yeah, on paper, I'm the guy that makes the final decisions, but I'm not coming in here to ignore your opinion. I'm coming in here and going to rely on your institutional knowledge and your sense of how this place can operate, the mistakes that have been made in the past, the successes that we've had in the past, how to leverage all that information to do this the right way. And I'm going to come in both with a spirit of leadership and ownership over what we're doing here, but also with a spirit of humility, saying, I can learn a lot from you. You've been here 30 years, as long as I've been alive. Let me ask you questions about things we could be doing better. And those are the kinds of attitudes that I want to bring to it to dissolve that pressure around being a young man in an important role.
Well, you said that well, and I think you've done a good job of establishing yourself. You only need to go look at the headlines that you and your team are developing. In fact, speaking of your team, we're out of time today, but the next time we come together, I want to talk about the inner workings of the various divisions of the auditor's office and the work that you're doing, what it takes to pull this off. I mean, some really, really dedicated public servants that work with you in their work. Over, I think some 150 people or more, maybe less these days because of the pandemic. But we'll come back to that in a month or so and have that conversation. It's been a pleasure, Shad, to have the opportunity to spend some time with you this morning.
It's been an honor. Thank you, brother.
You bet. This has been Shad White, the state auditor for the state of Mississippi. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.